There have been 49 by-election windows conducted by the Electoral Commission of South Africa since the November 2021 local government elections. Yesterday, in the Govan Mbeki Municipality in Mpumalanga, the by-election was contested by 6 candidates from 6 political parties. Now, those were from the ANC, EFF, IFP, then from the SK Party, SKCP Party, I should say, the Truth and Solidarity Movement, as well as MK. And earlier this month, 7 by-elections were held around the country in various voting districts. So to take a closer look at the outcome of the by-election yesterday and to unpack some of the importance around this and what we've seen of late, I'm joined here in studio by SABC Specialist Researcher for Politics and Governance, Maswele Ralebona. Maswele, thanks so much for coming through. So, firstly, perhaps important to also just let the viewers in on the fact that you've been tracking these by-elections since the 2021 local government election, and you've actually set up a dashboard for it, which we'll come to later on. But let's perhaps start with yesterday's by-election in Mpumalanga, in the Govan Mbeki Municipality. This is Secunda, and the ward that was contested there. So let's take a look. It was Ward 4. In that municipality. And important is that this was Umkhonto Wesizwe, since they were established in December. They've contested 2 by-elections in KwaZulu-Natal, Abatulusi and in Upongolo. And this was, of course, the first time they were contesting outside of KZN. So those results have now come through. Yes. Let's take a quick look at what happened in Secunda.
Thank you, Sakin. Thank you. Your viewers will realize, or you will have to understand, that by-elections are called by the Municipal Structures Act of 1998, in which they only happen when there's a resignation, there's an expulsion of a councillor, or death in the council. In 2022 there was a special case where the municipal in Northwest, Ritsobotla, was dissolved. Then it meant that the IEC will hold by-elections for the rest of the municipality. So that's the context of by-elections, for those who don't understand, asking themselves if it's a survey of some sort. But these are real elections for ward councillors, because in the ward we use the first past the post, which means the winner takes all. Looking at the Secunda by-elections right now, Sakina, you will realize that MK was only started last year in December, and of course with the Zuma factor, they first tested waters in KwaZulu-Natal, where they contested 2, as you have put it there. And the results, despite the fact that they didn't win, the result to them, I think, would be satisfactory, because in a case, in one of those 2 municipalities, they managed to split the ANC votes in a ward that the ANC previously held. They split the vote, and when you count their vote plus the ANC vote, it was up to 1,500 and 500 plus, and to that of IFP, which stood at around 600. And the IFP took the ward. But when you check, if MK was not there, and ANC maybe would have retained the ward. So you have the latest now in Mpumalanga, where the ANC retained the ward, but with a small margin compared to the previous elections in 2021, which means MK, as much as some wants to discard it, some are asking a very pertinent question to say, where are the policies of this party? Who are the leadership of the party? What do they stand for? Apart from supporting the former President Jacob Zuma. But the party is making inroads when it comes to electoral support. Indeed.
So when we look at the outcome from yesterday's ballot in Ward 4, Govan Mbeki, so the ANC, they, of course, they retained that ward, but it's important to look at the margins as they stand. So the ANC, 51%. And, which is, of course, just, above the outright majority threshold. doesn't matter in this case, but it's an important indicator.
Yes. And the fact that they are coming back from 56%, the fact that this party took something from the ANC, it took something from the EFF, it took something from the DA, even though the DA was not contesting in this case. But the party seems, the MK party seems to be making inroads in terms of electoral support. So many of us were waiting to see what's going to happen to MK outside the KZN. Now we wish, when we hope in the future, before the national elections, we can see something happening, something like that happening in provinces like Eastern Cape, Gauteng, and on Northwest, for example, where we can, because like I was making an example that this is better than the surveys that some of these companies do to project the results. If you take the results of the by-elections, and because this is real elections, and you put them there and say, this is what the MK, the new kid in the block, hardly 3 months, and they are really making an inroads. EFF, which has been around for quite some time now, more than 10 years, they are now third to the MK in these by-elections.
Which is very interesting. So the ANC got 51%, down from 56%, as you said, followed by MK. They got 28% of the vote. That's, of course, their first time contesting. EFF were down to 18% from 26% previously here. The IFP 3%, and they are up from 1%. And interesting dynamics, because this is a predominantly Zulu-speaking ward. So the multi-charter, that sort of coalition coming in, because the DA not contesting, because the IFP was contesting there, I would imagine. And the EFF, they would, of course, not be too happy with that outcome. And it seems as though, if you look at what happened there, if you look at what happened in the two by-elections in KwaZulu-Natal, Abaqulusi and Umkhonto, it would seem as though, and you could, argue about this, but it would seem as though the EFF is actually losing out here. One of the losers, along with the ANC and the DA and others, is, of course, but the EFF perhaps would be a little bit more concerned, because it seems as though maybe those votes that went to the EFF because of a disgruntlement with the Zuma issue in the ANC are now moving to MK.
There's that factor, Sakina. Lots and lots of analysts have been talking about it, to say, if you look at the 2019 elections, where Jacob Zuma, former President Jacob Zuma, was no longer there as the head of the ANC, we saw the EFF growing from 70,000 votes in KZN to more than 300,000 votes, of which, with the factor of former President Jacob Zuma coming back, we are yet to see whether those votes will now go back to the EFF, will be taken by former President Jacob Zuma, or even the IFP grew a lot in KwaZulu-Natal, for example. We want to see if those voters will now be voting with MK of former President Jacob Zuma, or they will retain the EFF. But the by-election results are telling us a different story.
And of course, beyond the by-election results, I was just having a look at some of the other indicators. If you look at the election results across the board, the ANC, we talk about the EFF and what they might be concerned about. The ANC equally, because polling at 51 here now. But if you look back in terms of how they've performed in this very ward, Ward 4, over the years, the 2011 election, they got 92% in that ward. Then 2014, 85%, 2016, 69%, 2019, 67%. 2021 local government elections, they polled at 56%, and of course 51% in yesterday's by-election. So it's a steady decline.
It talks to the ANC's reality, that the ANC, since the departure of former President Thabo Mbeki from the helm of the party, has not been growing in some instances, and in generally in the national elections. The ANC first term of former President Jacob Zuma, the ANC was at 65%. Second term, 62%. We know 2019, the ANC was at 57.5%, which talks to the same results in the by-elections, in the local government elections and everywhere else, that the ANC has been struggling. So we're yet to see in these upcoming elections if the ANC will be able to pull apart projections, the by-elections, and those who are doing surveys. It's showing that the ANC is really struggling.
Right. And that, of course, the latest by-election result in the Govan Mbeki Municipality, Ward 4 in Mpumalanga. And thanks to Maswele Ralebona, SABC Specialist Researcher for Politics and Governance, unpacking that Govan Mbeki Municipality by-election results and looking at other factors as well.